In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the population database programming exercise in your textbook. Now, the first thing that you need to do with this programming exercise is to run a program that's been provided for you called Create Cities DB. Now, this is a Python program that will create a database called cities.db, and that database will have three columns. It will have a table named cities, and the cities table will have three columns. The first column is named city ID, which is an integer primary key. The second column is named city name, and that's a text column that's going to hold the name of a city. And then the third column is named population, and it is a real column. It holds a floating point number, which will be the population of the city. Now, once you've run this program, the cities table will have 20 rows. Each row will have the information about a different city. Now, the Create Cities DB program, I've got it loaded into idle here, and you really don't have to know anything about this program. All you have to do is run the program to create the database. But it might be helpful if you take a moment to just look at the source code and see if you can understand what it's doing. You can see here we have a statement that is creating our cities table, and then here we have a list of tuples that contains all of the data that we're going to store in that table. But once again, you really don't need to understand what this program is doing. You just need to run this program so that you have the cities.db database. Now, once you've created the cities.db database, you can go ahead and start working on the actual program that you're going to write as part of this exercise. Now, the program that you're going to write will get a connection to the cities.db database, and then it will allow the user to perform various operations. In your programming problem here, you see a list of the operations that the program should be able to do. And when the program runs, it's simply going to display a list of these operations, and it will allow the user to pick one of these, and then it will perform that operation. And we generally refer to this as a menu. You're going to display a menu of operations that the user can choose from. So let's briefly just go through the list of operations that the program is going to do. It's going to display a list of the cities sorted by population in ascending order. And then it will be able to display a list of the cities sorted by population in descending order. The next operation is to display a list of cities sorted by name, an alphabetically sorted list of the cities. Next, we have display the total population of all the cities. Next, display the average population of all the cities. Next, display the city with the highest population, and then the last operation is to display the city with the lowest population. Now, it might help if I show you how the completed program is going to run before we start looking at any of the code. So here we have the program. I've already written the program, but let's just go ahead and run the program, and you can see how it's going to work. So here's the menu of all of those operations that we just discussed, and each one of these has a number associated with it, and I can choose one of these operations by entering the number. So if I want to see the cities sorted by population in ascending order, I'll enter 1 and press enter. And here we have the list of cities sorted by population in ascending order. And after that list is displayed, the menu appears again. So maybe this time I want to see the list of cities sorted by population in descending order. So that's number 2. So I'll just enter 2, and here's the list with the cities sorted by population in descending order. And you see how it goes. If I want to see the list of cities sorted by name, I'll enter 3. And here we have this alphabetically sorted list of cities. And then let's say, oh, I'm not going to go through all of these, but let's say I want to see the city with the highest population. That's item number 6. I'll enter 6. And it shows me that Tokyo has the highest population. Now, you'll notice that my menu only has 8 choices. Number 8 is to exit the program. We need to do some input validation on this menu so that if the user enters a number that's invalid, for example, if I enter 9, we want the program to catch that and to give us a message. And in this case, I simply have the program asking me to enter a valid choice. If I enter 0, you can see that it will just continue to prompt me for a valid choice if I enter something that's outside that range of 1 through 8. And if I enter 8, then the program terminates. Okay, well, let's close this and let's take a look at the code. So here we have the code, and I've got a lot of functions written in this program. Here we start with the main function. And in the main function, I'm going to initialize a variable to hold my menu choice, and then I'm going to connect to the cities.db database and get a cursor for the database. And then the next thing that I'll do is just go through the process of displaying the menu on the screen and getting the user's choice from the menu. Now, when the user has entered 8, remember that's the selection that causes the program to end, then this loop will stop iterating, and then here we close the connection, and that's where the program stops executing. Now, this while loop is going to call another function called getMenuChoice, which is right here. And you can see that the getMenuChoice function, the first thing that it does is it calls another function called displayMenu. And here we have the displayMenu function. And as its name implies, it simply displays the menu. It doesn't do anything else. So once the menu is displayed, we get the user's choice, convert that to an integer, and then we have a while loop that validates the choice. So the while loop, as long as choice is less than 1 or choice is greater than 8, we know that that's an invalid selection. So this is the code that just repeatedly prompts the user to enter a valid choice. And that continues until the user enters a number between 1 and 8. And when we've got a valid choice, we return that value. Now, if we go back up to the main function where we called this getMenuChoice function, it's right here inside of our loop, that value that's returned, which it's the value that the user entered from the menu, is assigned to our choice variable. And then we call another function called executeChoice, and we pass 2 arguments. We pass the choice variable, which has the user's menu choice, and we pass our database cursor object. So let's scroll down to the executeChoice function, which is right here. And it's simply an if-elif statement that looks at the choice variable, and it calls some other function depending on what the value of the choice variable is. So if choice is 1, then we call this city sorted ascending function. If choice is equal to 2, we call city sorted descending function, and so forth and so on. You can see that I'm calling a different function for each menu choice. And you'll also notice that all of these other functions that I'm calling, I'm passing the database cursor object as an argument. Okay, so let's look at these other functions to see how they operate. The first one is the cities sorted ascending function. So this function simply has an SQL statement that gets the city name and the population from the cities table ordered by population. And we execute that SQL query on our database. And here we fetch the results. And then here we display a heading on the screen, a heading that describes what the output is. And then we call another function called display results, passing this results variable. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down to that display results function because you're going to see lots of places in the program where we call that. So let's scroll down to display results, and here it is. So display results accepts our results object, and here we use an F string to print the word city in a field that's 20 characters wide, followed by the word population. So this is just a heading that goes on the screen. And then we have a for loop that iterates over the results object. And what it does is for each row, for each element in the results object, it displays element 0, which is the city name, in a field of 20 characters, followed by element 1, which is the population. And we round that to 0 decimal places, and we want to have a comma separator displayed in that number. So this simply takes whatever result object that we've passed to it and assumes that that result object contains two columns, the city column and the population column, and it displays those on the screen. Okay, so now let's go back up to our city sorted ascending function. So you've seen how that works. The next function is cities sorted descending. It's pretty much the same code as the function we just looked at, except that you'll notice in our SQL statement we have this modifier that causes the order by clause to give us the results sorted in descending order. Once again, we fetch the results of that SQL statement, and then here we display those results. The next function is cities sorted by name. So this function takes our cursor, our database cursor, and it executes this select statement, which gets the city name and the population columns from the cities table ordered by city name. So this is going to give us the list sorted in alphabetical order. And once again, we fetch those results, and here we pass our results object to the display results function. Next, we have the total population function. Now this one is just going to display the total population of all the cities, and we can get our database to do that calculation for us with a select statement. Here we're executing a select statement with the sum function. We want to sum the population column from the cities table. And here we're going to call the cursor object's fetch1 method to give us the results. And the reason that we do that is that the sum function is simply going to return one value as its result. So we can call the fetch1 method to get that one value. And then here, instead of passing that argument to the display results function, we're just going to display it directly here in our print statement. Here we're using an F string to display total population followed by results sub 0, and that's going to be the one value that was returned from our SQL statement. So that'll display the total population. Next we have the average population function. Here we execute an SQL statement using the AVG, or the average function. We're getting the average of the population column from the cities table. Here we're going to fetch that result, and then here we're going to use the print function to display the result on the screen. Next we have the highest population function, which is going to execute an SQL statement with the max function. We're going to get the maximum value from the population column in the cities table. We're going to fetch the results of that SQL statement, and this is simply going to give us a population number. Now, what we really want to do, we could take the shortcut route and we could just display that population, but that wouldn't really be a good thing to output on the screen. We also want to display the city that goes along with that population. So here we're going to execute another SQL statement that gets the city name and the population, where the population is equal to our results object, max results. So this is going to get the city that has the population that was returned from the max function. And then here we're going to get that one result using the fetch1 method. And then here we have a print function that prints a message on the screen showing result sub 0, which is the city name, has the highest population, and then we want to display result sub 1, which is the population. So that'll display the city that has the highest population. And we take that same approach with the lowest population function. Here we execute an SQL statement with the min function on the population column. That gives us the minimum value, the smallest value in the population column. Here we're fetching that number, and then here we're executing an SQL statement that's going to give us the row from the cities table that has that population. And we're selecting the city name and the population. And here in this statement, we're fetching the results of that SQL statement. And once again, in those results, element 0 will be the city name, and element 1 will be the population. So in this statement, we're going to print those values. Result sub 0, the city name, has the lowest population, and then here is the population. Here's the display results function. We've already looked at that, and then here at the bottom we have our if statement that executes the main function.